Good. My name is Chris Whittle. I'm with a company called Collective Bias. I'm IT director. I'll show you my screen so I don't keep repeating myself when I go through some of this. All right. So hopefully everybody can see uh, switch off my webcam. Dylan, can you see my screen okay?
Sorry, I muted myself. Yep, we can see your screen just fine.
Great, thanks. All right. So again, my name is Chris Whittle. This class is introducing users to Google Apps. Just a little about me. Basically, I'm the IT director of Collective Bias, which is a marketing company that's based out of Bentonville, Arkansas. That you can see a little bit of information. We're a pretty small IT team that is extremely cloud forward. We've always been sort of Google Apps users, and we're a little bit different too because we're a Mac company as well. But there's a little bit of information about me. What we're talking about today is really, about introducing users to Google Apps. So you're at least one of these people below. Basically, you're either someone that's pondering the life of Google and want to have some ideas to set up yourself for success. Maybe you've already done it. Maybe you're old. You've been doing this for a while and just looking for some new ideas. Um, or you're looking for G-Con giveaways. So I didn't know they were giving away shirts. That makes more people show up. So that's good. So. All right. So basically, what I want to talk about in some of this is just, I'll sort of preface this is sort of things that have worked for us and some of the people that I've sort of polled and talked to that are also Google Apps people. What I talk about in some of this might not work for you because we are a highly cloud Google-centric company for a lot different environment than everyone else. And so it's a little different. And we've always been Google, so it's a little easier to say, oh, this worked for us when we weren't coming from others. But we have had a lot of people that have come from companies that were not as cloud forward and is not as, Google was a bad word, they were blocked on their intranets and stuff like that. So, we've had to sort of train those. So we have some experience with it, but it's just a little different because we've been this way. So basically, I'm going to start off with a few thoughts, then lead to some selling points for new users, because really sometimes that's been in my deal has been to sell users on using the product that they don't really have a choice in the matter with anyways, but still trying to get them to be on board with it. And then I'll finish up with some workarounds for those problematic people, and I'll explain a little bit more on that in a minute. So what is the best way? Well, in my opinion, immersion is the best way. And what I mean immersion is just basically feet first, throw them into it with a little bit of caveat, not just leave them to their own devices. But the reason why is that everything is integrated. And it really makes life easier once you get used to it. Most people end up back here anyways. And I give the example, a couple years ago, we were in Google. We have people that were using Outlook to connect with Google, which I'll talk about in a minute, but just some third-party apps on desktops. And we implemented a CRM that had a Chrome extension. Made life super simple for our salespeople. But guess what? Everybody that was using Outlook or Thunderbird or Mail or whatever, they couldn't use the extension. And so they had to relearn how to use the sort of the default Google experience. So that's why I say most people end up back here. So most people are okay with this. A lot of the people that come in from other companies, they're a little hesitant, but with help, they can sort of do what they need to do. So so what sort of helps with this? Like kids, you sort of frame it as a venture. I've got 3 kids, and a lot of times when we're trying to get them to do new things, it's like we have to frame it as an adventure, and unfortunately, sometimes you have to do that with users as well. Somebody I talked to actually said they had started off with using Chromebooks to where the users didn't have the ability to do anything else but sort of be inundated and immersed into Google environment. That's pretty hard to do depending on what you're trying to accomplish. Like if you're a Google Docs people, that's use all that. You don't have any desktop applications are all cloud-based. Man, that would work great. But if it's not, then it gets a little bit it's just not as easy. So the biggest part that we've found out is Google ambassadors. So, and I'll explain a little bit what Google ambassadors are, but that's been our biggest success. So, our Google ambassador, basically, it's a really loose thing. It's anyone that's been using Google for long enough that loves the product and can easily talk somebody else into using it or talk them through it. We've gotten to the point in our company that this is what we rely on. We don't even have any real formal training for our users. Occasionally we'll have some people that really have a hard time understanding what's going on, and we might have to switch back to, sitting down with them one-on-one. But for the most part, we have, everybody in the company has used the product long enough that they know how to use it the way they want to use it. And everybody uses it a little differently, but if they're in the same business area, the same job type, they can, really help push this. So I've got a few, points on what makes that person, but I mean, it really depends on your environment, who you've got, and who's available. The last part's probably the biggest. You don't want somebody that doesn't like talking to people. You've got, if you've got somebody in a department that doesn't like people, period, you don't want them to be your Google ambassador because it's going to make it rough. But you'll find these people, a lot of times these people stand up without even having to, you don't even have to ask. So the next sort of part of the slides is sort of these selling points or the high notes of some of the higher up Google applications that you can sort of sell people on. Some of these you probably already know of. Hopefully maybe I'll find a couple that you might not, or just things to think about. So first one is Gmail, multiple inboxes. A lot of people come in from products where you're set in stone. Your inbox looks the same way to everything. Gmail's got tons of different, three. That's not equal to ton, but let's just say three. But we've got different inboxes, some configuration that you can allow them to, set up. The labs and extensions, man, that is just great. I mean, heck, I've built a couple of Chrome extensions myself that have simplified our lives, across the company, but just the ones that are out there. Now, there's security pieces here. This is, great. There's labs extensions, but, you've got security things you need to worry about as well. So, but we're not going to really jump into that here. But offline Gmail, it's a way to fix with people that can't, they don't have the connectivity as well as others. So, being able to enable offline. Once again, some security pieces there too. Not something you just want to jump in the middle of. But the search, I mean, it's always funny how people forget about search when it comes to the Google applications. It's not perfect, don't get me wrong, but it is really good. And so, being able to search through and using the tool, it's based out of Google, so it's going to do search really well. And so the ability to come through here and look at, search for different time range, using the advanced search options, man, they're great. What about Inbox? Yeah, so we're not using Inbox yet. I love Inbox. I'd sort of throw that up into another Inbox option. It's a great product. It's just because we're Google Vault clients, it's not completely covered all the way by Google Vault, so we just haven't really switched there. So on the lab and extensions, one thing I want to touch on that one of the best extensions that you can show somebody that most people will just go crazy over is like Boomerang. The ability to have an email come back to you in a certain amount of time to remind you to act on it. As a company, we use that quite a bit, and that seems to be one of the most favorite extensions out there. So next we'll talk about Drive. It connects with Gmail with no problems. It's gone, or that it's not as hard as or not really hard because you've got some cool features with the drag and drop on email, but you've got, you can attach a file directly from there. It's smart enough to know that the people in the email aren't shared on the document correctly, and if you want to remedy that, that's pretty cool. Other systems aren't that smart. Drag and drop, it's nice. You can drag and drop files directly from your desktop up there. That's most of the newer products do that too, but doc sheets and presentations, the whole Office, I don't want to say Office, the whole Google Office suite, I don't know what you call that, but that's great if you're using them. If you're not using them, you probably should be, but because there's so much nice functionality there. Is it a killer for Microsoft? I don't think so yet, because too many people are using it, and there's differences in the way they render the files, but it's a great selling point. We use a product like AODocs or Loom Drive to actually create shared document folders, because coming in from an outside, like a traditional file system or whatever, even just normal Google Drive, people don't always get the documents they need. So we use this to make sure that certain libraries or spaces are shared out, so to all the people they need to be. So search, once again, search is awesome. The search here is great. I don't know if you guys have messed with the Better Cloud options. Well, it adds a whole other level to this I'm not going to get into because it really defeats the point for this. It's more of an administrative thing. But from a user standpoint, search is great here. You can find a lot of things that way. So the next option is calendar. The high notes, find a time. There's some stuff with Outlook and Exchange and stuff that you can do with this. But the people in rooms, we've got all our people and all our different resources. We've actually I should have put resources instead of rooms, but we have, different resources out there that you can check, that you can reserve or, book with it. It's surprising to me, even in our company, that we still have people that don't see that find a time button. But it's so great when you want to say, hey, I want to see everybody in the company, or this group of people, and I want to make a email or try to schedule a meeting, and then you'll have to send email after email to find out when they're available. The extensions like Calendly, which takes that to another degree, which is outside people. There's a great option there where you can add that extension, which would allow outside people outside of Google and whatever to see your calendar and find out what time you have available. The multiple calendar options, great. We use that crazy where we've got our holiday and vacation times. I see the people on my team's calendars to be able to look through and see what, when they're available or what they're doing. And then offline capabilities as well here. Once again, some security things, but it's a great piece if you're going to be stuck in an airport that doesn't have Wi-Fi and you don't have a hotspot. So next step is we've got Hangouts and Groups. We were just laughing early on about one of the questions that was raised before the even meeting had started about Google Hangouts. So why this wasn't on a Google Hangout. So from our perspective, or at least mine, not Dylan's or the Guru's, but from mine, Hangouts is not quite yet an enterprise level product. And so there's a lot of little problems that we've had as a company, but it's a great tool for the quick stuff, the easy, easy chat and video conference where you're just two people need to pick up a call real quick. It has limitations on size, so that's what it is. That Chrome extension, it is the only thing I can find that works well with this. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but it's a great little, great tool to do that. The Google Groups, we don't actually use a lot of it other than just the email piece to Google Groups, which is just that. But it's it would be a great tool for using for forums for teams. I know a lot of people use it where they'll have that as a place where people can come in and have their conversations in there instead of via email. So it's both great collaboration and stuff. There's a lot of other apps here. I've sort of hitting the high notes, like sites and things like that. I'm not going to really get into those because of time, and part of it's because we don't actually use some of that stuff, like the Google Sites stuff. So what happens when people don't want to use Google? They don't want to go full Google. It's sort of a problem. When you've got this only happens very seldomly with us anymore. But when we first, in the last couple of years, during some changes, we've had some people come in. We actually had a high-level senior VP come in, and he refused to use Google natively. He would not. He was used to using Outlook and Exchange. And I'm not talking about, like, current-day Outlook Exchange, maybe Office 365. This guy wanted, like, Server 2003 Exchange with, Office, whatever time that was, whatever Office version was running at that time. And he actually made us go out and quote the whole product to find out how much it would cost to change us. Of course, we did it because he asked, but of course, we weren't ever going to change. But with him, we sort of had to run in across, we tried to run through and try to find some ways to sort of make him happy with the product. And we'll talk a little bit more in a minute on some of those options, but we got, here's some of the excuses that we've heard. I'm too big, it's going to mess with my productivity. Yeah, it is, but guess what? Your first week or two at work, I mean, I know even sales, you've got some time. I mean, you're learning a lot of things, I understand, but to learn this the right way, you're gonna be so much happier in the future. Don't have time to learn. Well, guess what? Everybody says that. We're all busy. I mean, but you do, especially when you're new. There's time for you to learn. But if they don't want to do it, if there's something they don't have time to talk to you or schedule time, I'm doing the shameless plug here. Turn them on the Guru. The Guru's got some cool stuff on their site with just training that's for just entry-level people talking about different applications and some advanced stuff and whatever. So just for all of you guys know, they paid me twice as much as what they were going to pay me before that, but 2 times 0 is still 0. Um, so what if they're not going to change? What if they will not use the full Google thing? Like I said, they're going to eventually use it. I can almost guarantee it. But if they they're trying to force it back to what they're used to, something they're happy with. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of those things. So this is, easy stuff. One of the biggest complaints we had by this sales guy was that he didn't like the conversations from Google. He didn't like how threaded they were. He wanted those, gone. He was used to the normal. You get an email, the response to the email comes in as a separate email, the response to that email comes in as a separate email, and they just stack up and stuff. So we turned off his conversations. Didn't really help him. He didn't really actually, he wasn't really that impressed by that. So, but that's something you can do. If you get somebody that come in that's not used to this threaded conversation type view, every app you run across now that's any kind of collaboration or communication tool has this conversation piece built into it. But if they're used to something old, this is a one way to do it. The other way is to connect it with a mail client. You lose a ton of functionality by doing that, but it's doable. I say ton. Maybe that once again, that may be close to 3, but closer to 3 than a ton. But you do lose some functionality. So we don't suggest it because they're also heavy. You run Outlook, it takes up a good footprint on any OS that it's running on. Even Thunderbird, there's several lighter weight ones than that, but they all additional something to run, something else to break. They might not have all the integrations. Once again, like back to that CRM example, if you do this, you might not be able to use the CRM or Salesforce integration or something like that. You're going to run against that. So we definitely don't suggest it. It's all doable. There are several 100,000 documents out there telling you how to do it with different clients. Almost every one of them will have something that they're going to miss. So it's not the best, but if you get somebody that's high enough level that has the clout to say, no, I'm not going to do this, this is your options. So calendar, sort of same thing. You've got your Outlook, you've got your Mail, you got your Sunrise. There's some newer ones out there that are a little nicer, but for the most part, it's all basically the same thing. You've got another thing. It's heavy. Even just the Google Calendar apps. If you get into Thunderbird with the Sunrise option, it gets even heavier. You don't get stuff like Find a Time. It's harder to do that. Some of the communication pieces, things like that, are going to be missing. It's not instantaneous. I know you get when you get calendar invites and the date changes, the time changes with those. Like anything, there's a lag to when usually you'll catch the push notification that changes it. It's never that long, but it can be sometimes. So, same song, different dance, loss of functionality, ease of use, integration, all the stuff that you guys already read. So. The last part I want to sort of push on is this chat. If you're going to want to try to use your chat, man, I definitely don't suggest this one. You will really lessen the usage of Google Hangouts. Most apps, I don't think I've actually found an app that handles Google Hangouts yet. So I talk about Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. So everybody that doesn't know, Google Chat and Hangouts are actually separate products. And they look the same, and they sort of trade back and forth, but they're not exactly the same. Case in point, Google Vault does not support Hangouts yet. Does not support GChat. So if you want to really lock down your Google Vault and have to keep records and things of like conversations that have happened, that's not there. So we actually have had to turn off Gtalk in our environment because of some things that have happened that we wanted to make sure we were covered. Once again, that's an admin piece. I'm sort of going off on a tangent, but there's a difference. And what that boils down to is the applications that third-party applications you use with them they're not really that great. You're just going to run a lot of stuff. You're going to lose history. A lot of times, some of the conversations that happen in a third-party app will not show up in your chat conversation that's in Google. So there's going to be issues with connectivity. I mean, heck, I had one that it would not keep me logged in. I mean, it's just a glitch in the app. It has nothing to do with Google. It's just glitchy. But those are the kind of things you're going to run across. You're going to run across that kind of problem. So I would definitely suggest chat, not being an option to use that for something like that. So. I'm pretty much about done here. My last part here, summary, peer experience seems to be the best. At least that's been our experience, that, almost everybody comes back to Google experience. Google ambassadors rock. I couldn't support the amount of people I support right now if I had to spend as much time with every person. We'd have to hire additional training people to do that, which is not a bad thing. If you guys have a specific way you want people to use it, we're very open. Like I said, different people use these products in different ways, but from the base functionality, it's all there. But without Google ambassadors, we'd really be up a creek. So that's pretty much what I got. So I guess I'm here. So Dylan, if you want to take the wheel.
Yeah. So sorry, my lights are on a timer, so they keep going out. Got a lot of good questions here, so we'll dive right in. Chris, you want to get your webcam up while we're doing the Q&A? But keep the slides up, keep the slide up if possible.
Yeah, I'll just see if I can do both. Be ironic if the IT guy can't do both.
Okay, so do you have a knowledge base for your employees, or do you just send them to sites like the Guru?
For the most part, with our people, we don't, we really we rely on those ambassadors. But if not, then yeah, we find out what their problem is and specifically, try to find out what their issue is and try to push them to something like the Guru or something else.
Yeah, we actually, not to sell my own snake oil too much, but we came out with Guru Quick Hits, which are sort of designed for training your users. It's like 42 flashcards they don't even need to sit through a video. It's just one card with like 3 to 5 steps that goes through a lot of the basics of Google Apps. So check those out. Do you have any suggestions for getting users to use Google Docs instead of Word/Excel? What are some of your tactics for converting?
Man, the biggest part of it is the collaboration piece. We still have the same problem here. I mean, I'd like to say, oh, we're a big, we're all Google Drive and Google Docs users, but the problem is that we are Google Drive users, but from the Docs part, we're definitely not into as far as we would like. Probably the biggest piece is the Excel, and it's not because Google Spreadsheets does less than what Microsoft does. It's just the people that come in, and it's mainly like the accountants, are so used to Excel they don't want to change. But for getting them to use, I mean, this collaboration piece is just great. I mean, getting in a Word, when you've got like 7 people in a Google Word doc, Google Doc, and they're sitting there going back and forth and having a meeting where they can sit there and make real-time changes to a document and make notes and comments and things like that. Man, that's just great. I mean, it's such a nice piece to be able to do that. Or Excel spreadsheet, it's nice, or I'm sorry, Excel, but Google Spreadsheet, same thing. You can do similar things. You can also see who all's in a document at the same time. And see what's going on. So I would really push on the collaboration piece if you're trying to get people in. The two that we've had problems with is presentation and the spreadsheets. And presentation, it's mainly because, unfortunately, everybody is a Google or a PowerPoint. Everybody uses PowerPoint. And for the most part, presentation will convert things pretty straight away. The problem you run across is when you get to the real advanced spreadsheets where somebody's really used a lot of tools to make this document or this background a certain way and stacked up elements to make it look cool and animations and things like that that don't translate over. And it's not really a Google Spreadsheets problem as much as if it tries to translate over to anything, it's going to lose pieces to it. So
Yeah, just to add to that, part of it is also cultural, really making it a Google Apps culture. I remember at my office when people start, and if you say, Excel rather than a Google Sheet or spreadsheet, people will kind of make fun of you. And then I think just changing that language and stuff like that can sort of also help. Not so much a technical answer, but more of a shaming answer. Um,
I like. I saw the one that says that Google Forms are awesome. I agree, and I wish I apologize for not bringing that one up. We use that a lot. So that's also a good way to possibly get people to use it because you can set those up. The caveat that I have with Google Forms though is that they cannot trying to customize them to look like on brand and things like that is not as easy as you would like. One of the things that we just worked with was trying to find out if there was a way to push out like a template, just even having our logo and a certain font type, that kind of stuff. And currently Google Forms does not support that. So, but other than that, I mean, Google Forms is great for being able to set things up and you control who sees it, who doesn't. If they have to log in to get it or they don't, it's great.
um, Trisha wants to know, do you have experience with Chrome extensions that allow you to edit Word documents in Drive, and what are your views on those?
So currently we're using AODocs. We're looking at maybe making a change to another product, actually Loom Drive, as I talk about. Both of those have those capabilities where you can basically right click and what it does is it downloads it in the background and then opens it up in whatever the Office product it is, and when you save changes, it automatically updates back up. So I think there's some other ones out there, but those are the two that we've had, at least, I mean, AODocs we've had the most experience with. I haven't had much experience with the Loom Drive stuff yet. We're still sort of prototyping it out to make sure we want to do it, but they're really nice. One of the things you've got to be careful with Office Docs, though, is you've got to turn off, and this is a per user thing. I don't think you can turn this off globally yet. Is you need to turn off the conversion. So if I drag and drop an Office document into Google Drive out of the box, it will convert it in. It'll try to convert it into whatever its form is: Google Doc, Google Spreadsheet, presentation, whatever. Or at least it used to. I'm not sure, they might have changed that, but we haven't had as much problem with it lately. But I would definitely look at that.
All right. Next question. I have a group of employees that I won't say that word. Every time I send out a Google Apps update, their main complaint is the management of tasks and calendar and the snoozing function. Do you know a third-party app that handles this well?
Man, I'm actually stumped on that one. Yeah, I'm not. I don't think I've got a good answer for that one. I've never had that. You're talking about just like for I'm guessing for a calendar invite. So every time the calendar invite changes, you're sending it out. Is that? Not quite sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure if
That's
they. I'll see if they ask anything else to elaborate.
yeah.
Not seeing another question from them, so I guess that one's a stump.
Yeah.
Um,
Do you pay your ambassadors a stipend? No, we don't pay them a stipend. They get my gratitude, which is worth a lot, of course, to most everybody. But no, no, for the most part, like I said, our culture and environment, we're big on trying for people helping, and so it does help them. It does serve a purpose because um, if you file a ticket, we're pretty quick on our ticket system and everything, but when they need help like that, they're definitely going to get it better from the person next to them. And so if they're anywhere remotely job related, they're wanting to help them to get their stuff going. So
could you elaborate on the support skills and responsibilities you assign to ambassadors, and when/what they escalate to you?
it's pretty easy. We don't really support anything. We don't really make them support anything. We really it's just literally like you asking your friend next to you how to do something, and they might jump in if they're having questions or problems. Like I said, it's just really mainly to help them. And if they don't have the information and there's no one they know that does, and it stumps them, they raise it to us. I mean, we're pretty informal when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Um, so when like you're in a company that's in the process of switching to Google Apps, do you recommend a full switch? Or maybe this is actually for training users. So when you're training users, do you just do a full switch, like you're now using Google tools, or do you sort of slowly paste them into it?
I mean, most of the people we deal with, we're coming from, they're coming to a new company. It's sort of they don't have much of a choice. In that situation, man, I, it's possible. I mean, because you don't want to really like bring your company to a halt. Um, but I would probably say running them in tandem with a specific timetable to say, hey, these will be available for a certain time. Let's do training, schedule some training around it as well. But you can use them both, and then have a deadline to say by this time, you know, whatever Outlook or Exchange or whatever is going to be unavailable. So you're gonna have to. Some of that stuff like Gmail, you don't have a choice. You can't really run email on both systems. But like something like Google Drive, you can run it in whatever environment you were in before and this one. But yeah,
Okay,
I'd say it probably just depends.
this next one I'm very curious about. So Louise wants to know the graphic used on the Google Ambassadors slide, is that available for use, perhaps on t-shirts? Could you go back to that slide?
Yeah, I think so. Hold on, let's see here. Let's look here. Sorry, here. The webinar stuff is all over here. This one? No. Oh, this one. No, let's see. Hold on. Which one was it? This
The
one?
Ambassadors slide. Oh, this.
Oh, so that I actually made that one. It's easy. Just go to Google and type what I just typed. You will see exactly what I say. There's more below it, but
Do you have to do an
I
incognito window, or is that based on personal
no,
searches?
I don't know. That's a good point. I think I just did it with a regular window. So I've never searched for any of those. So I don't think. Now, if you get any further down, maybe it might be something. But yeah, I saw somebody had posted that image because a lot of times when I do these slides, I'm looking for cool images and stuff that are, at least don't suck too much. And I found one off of, somebody had posted one like that, but it was really low res, and so I just went in and did it myself and just basically started typing it and then screenshot it and pasted it. So. I would suggest just do that yourself. If not, you can. My email's here. I'll shoot it to you. So it's no problem.
Um, let's see. Amy wants to know where she can find this video recording. I'll be sending it to everyone who registered later today. Hopefully it'll get out. And then I'll also be putting it on the GCon website for rewatch. Okay, here's a question for you. How is your experience with scripts running on Google products?
Well, the ones that I've done so far has really been. I built a Chrome extension that runs around Google or on Gmail for our help desk system. Um, it, I'm not sure what she means by experience, but it does take someone that knows how to develop to build them. And as well as they build them well, they should work pretty well. But it's an interesting piece because they're not, like with Gmail, it doesn't tell you that you're in an email. You have to know what sort of triggers will look like. And so from a development experience, it's a little bit different. But once you sort of figure it out, it's not too bad. So.
Okay. We are continually having to copy folders for our new distance ed families. Um, Drive for desktop works, but we have had issues with files being deleted unintentionally. Do you know of another way?
That is where AODocs or LoomDocs works great for that. That's why we implement it. So we were in Dropbox and tried Dropbox Teams, which if I don't want to get anybody in trouble, but I'm not going to say any more on that one. But if you want to, we went to Box, had some issues with Box, and so we were already Google users, so we said, well, we're going to go to Google Drive natively. And one of the problems we ran across was that specific thing is either things get deleted that was sort of shared or people not getting access to things. And so what we looked for was a product that would do that, and AODocs is what we end up at the beginning, and it does that. It basically takes ownership. It runs as as a specific user, which takes ownership of these shared documents and spaces, or they call them libraries, which is basically a folder of documents. And that user owns it, so no one else owns it. So if a document gets copied to that folder, it takes ownership of it immediately, so that user can't do anything with it. If they're an editor, they can delete, but it sort of creates its own little trash so that it puts it into a place where people can't, it can't just be removed. But that's been a great product for that. Like I said, we're looking at another one similar to it for some issues we've run across, but I would definitely look into those. So
Sounds good, Gwen. You got to check those out. So we have some elaboration on that question about snoozing earlier. So
okay.
she wants the ability to snooze a task like in Outlook, is she said the complaint.
I mean, with ours, I've not used the task pieces. I guess I'm sort of pushing back, saying that's like a calendar. I know you can snooze a calendar invite or a calendar reminder a certain amount of times and things like that, but I've not actually used the task piece. The task piece we ran across was not, um, it wasn't as enterprise as we'd like. At least at the time we were looking. I haven't looked in a while. It's been probably 6 months or so. But with the actual Google Tasks, we wanted the ability to do team tasks really easily, and at the time I didn't have it, so I don't have a lot of experience with that,
I think
unfortunately.
I might have an answer for this one actually. There's this tool I became aware of recently called hashtag to do. You actually write out the word hashtag. It's like HASHTAG to do. And what it does is it turns calendar events into tasks that you can check off. So you can still have all the same
Huh,
snoozing functionality you would have with a calendar event, but you'd also have the same checking off ability that you have with a task. So that could
that's interesting.
be
Yeah, because the
usable.
calendar piece works out really well. I mean, I don't know how many times I've snoozed for another 5 minutes while I'm doing something so that I don't forget that I'm supposed to do something next. So,
All right. Do you have a suggestion on how to recommend best practices for Google Groups to end users?
from a when you should have a Google group and when you
I think sort
shouldn't
of
have a
just,
Google group.
yeah, maybe what to use Google Groups for and things like that. And yeah, I think that would probably answer that question of like when they should be
I don't.
using them. Because I think some people, they've probably started a group email thread just once in a while and send something to a few people and they create a Google group just for it and it's unnecessary.
Yeah.
They can definitely start to add up.
Yeah, because we had that problem at one time. We had like, I want to say like 200 to 300 groups at one time because nobody was policing it. Because my job, I sort of was developer first and then IT second at first, and now I'm all IT. But when we first started, that sort of happened. Somebody like, I want a group about this, and we would just put it together. And from our perspective, we've tried to clean those up. I don't know if the only real good best practice I have is having a person or persons that is sort of the police to really say, okay, why are you trying to create this group? What's the reasoning behind it? And talking through it before you actually create it, not just throw one out there, because you're going to run real quick into a bunch of groups that aren't useful and or just will die. Um, so I don't think that's exactly what you were asking, but that's about what I got. So
There's some questions, a lot of responses to the talking about snoozing tasks. Some people have some
yeah,
suggestions. Some people ask if we use Google Keep. So for me, I definitely use Google Keep personally, just for keeping track of my tasks like grocery shopping and things like that. And it's a great way to sort of have snoozable tasks and things like that. And it's, a home baked Google product, which is nice. So no need for integrations or add-ons. But I've never used it on a domain-wide level or tried to use it, you know, in an enterprise fashion. What about you, Chris?
we're using. I mean, really, because our company is sort of loose with a lot of those things. Like my team, we used Todoist because that's what I was looking for was like a group level type thing, and I tried Keep and we couldn't get it to work exactly the way we wanted to, and so we used Todoist, which does integrate with Google and is nice, but yeah, that's what we've been using for a while, and it's pretty good. It allows you to categorize things and put you know times on them to when they have to be completed by, and they've got several different apps of every flavor and whatever. A couple good Chrome extensions too.
Yeah, and Google Keep just finally came out with a iOS function, which is nice.
That So that's probably one of the biggest, or not the biggest downside, but a downside. But one of the things I want to push. I'm a big Android fan, and so I always get the coolest Google, all the coolest Google tools pretty quickly. And the iOS seems to get them eventually, but they don't always. Normally the Android version is like nicer. It's. I remember the last calendar update that came out. My buddy was like, "Hey man, I can do all these things," and he's like, "Look how cool this looks." I was like, Yeah, I mean, I've had that for like 6 months. I'm sorry. It's like I was like, that's great, but
Have you ever had experience, this person, some of their users are complaining that their documents are duplicating by themselves. Have you ever experienced or heard about this? And if so, what kind of solution did you find?
are you if you're using Google Sync, which I didn't talk about, the Drive Sync tool, I have had that problem happen before, so that might be something. To be honest, we just abandoned Drive Sync as a tool for our company, at least enterprise-wide, because of things like that. We had a lot of problems with that and just the ability of configuration. So that would be the only thing I could think of that would cause that. The other thing I would look at would be what applications do you have that have access to Google Drive. So if you're using any of your third-party tools that are connecting, like, like we've got Better Cloud, we've got Google Drive or AODocs, Long Drive, all those things. Those all have certain rights to do things to your system. So I would sort of look at those and make sure you don't have something that could possibly be doing it. I think the Drive audit might give you some visibility into that, but I don't know for sure. But I would probably say it's a third-party tool that might be going haywire, or it's the Drive Sync client if that person has access to those
Speaking of
documents.
Drive Audit, are you guys using Google Apps Unlimited?
We are. We are. We've been using it. We love it. I mean, it's so nice because we don't have to worry about sizes anymore. It's like we can. They're like, oh, it's huge. I don't care. It's unlimited. So it doesn't really matter. So, but we've liked it. The audit tool has gotten better. We still augment it with other tools to look at some of the things, but the audit tool that comes in there is doing better. So.
All right. Here's a good question that I'm sure a lot of people get use out of. So, how do you support your users? Do you just have them send you an email, or do you have a ticketing system? And is there any Google solution that you might recommend?
So Google itself doesn't offer one that I'm aware of. There are several that are Google that'll connect with Google. Um, One of which that we just did. Oh my gosh, it's some kind of B. Oh crap, I'll have to look for it. We looked at one. We use a product called Mojo Help Desk. Very bare bones. They've done a really good job of implementing new stuff, but we try to use our help desk across the company, not just for IT. And so, but it's email based, so that we can just basically use, from a user's perspective, they're just responding to an email. But there are several other products. Keeping, that's a brand new one that just came out that I would highly suggest looking at. We were looking at switching it to it, but it just came out a few months ago called Keeping. And then there was one that had something to do with a bee, like a bee, like a bug bee, or insect, I guess. Um, but those any of those that are integrated, I've definitely spent a lot of time looking for good ones that integrate with Google, but I've not found a native Google app yet. So I think the keeping is the closest that I found to it.
Um, while we're on the topic of third-party apps, Mark wants to know what third-party add-ons do you consider essential, i.e., spanning, AODocs, Better Cloud, etc.?
Well, for our uses, AODocs is essential just because it allows us to do what we're trying to do with our drive. But from like a usable user standpoint, I mean, like right now, I've got the Gmail. There's a Gmail notifier by Jason Savar. It's not it's not the default one, but it's really great. We use OneLogin. I don't know if you guys have looked at OneLogin, but it's got some cool stuff with integration with Google too. I have that toolbar, close to Chromecast because I watched a lot of TV. And Hangouts. The Hangout extension, like I said, is really the best if you're going to use Hangouts. It has been for us, at least, with Chrome. And on that note, if you're going to be doing this, like if you're new to Google, please, if you can, use Google Chrome. It's going to work. It's just going to work better. I know there's some haters out there, but from our perspective, it's been the best. Every once in a while, I'll get pissed off at something that Google Chrome's doing or running slow or something, and I'll try to go to Firefox or something like that, and I end up always coming back to Chrome because it just works better for a lot of the stuff we're dealing with. So,
One more
um,
slide image request. The
okay.
Android Ninja at the end of the presentation.
Yes, I found that. I definitely didn't make that. It's an awesome one. It's actually a spin-off of Attack on Titan. Let's see if I can find it real quick. There's too many windows up that you guys can't see. This one. Yeah.
There we go.
I'll have to look and see if I can find it. I'm going to share this. I'll share this presentation out, and Dylan will he'll push it out to everybody. But you're welcome to steal it because I stole it too. So there's only a couple of these that
In
I
terms of
actually made
making
myself.
T-shirts of that, that's between you and the creator
Yeah, that's
and
between you and
their
the.
lawyers.
Yeah, the ones that I did make were not this one, not these, of course. So you can make a T-shirt with this one on it. I made that, So that's I don't know if the History Channel might have a problem with it though, but in this one you could probably make that one too if you wanted to make a T-shirt out of it. So
All right, and that's all the time we have. Want to give a big thank you to everyone who tuned in. Obviously, thanks to Chris. Great presentation, and make sure you tune in tomorrow. We have another full day of presentations tomorrow, so check those out, and I'll be sending out a recording of this presentation later. All right, thank you guys. Have a good rest of your day.